Now we have a small problem to help illustrate all of the things that you just encountered. We're going to write a class called replace text, and what it's going to do is it's going to open an input file and go through it a line at a time and replace a particular string that it finds anywhere within the line with a replacement string. In fact, if you look down at the bottom of the slide, you can see what is going to be replaced by what. We're going to look for all occurrences of string builder, and we're going to replace all occurrences of string builder with string buffer instead. We're going to make a new file from the original file called t.text. Now the command line that we're going to use will look like what you see in the middle of the slide there. The general format will be Java replace text, which is the name of our Java class, and then the source file name, and then the target file name, and then the old string that we're looking to search for, and the new string that we wish to replace it with. So in this particular example, then we're going to say Java replace text, and then the input file is format string.java. The output file is t.text, which is the next argument on the command line. And then the search string is string builder, and the replacement string is string buffer. So let's take a look at how we would write a program to do this job. It turns out to be relatively simple and only occupies 2 slides of source code in total. Well, we start with importing Java IO and Java util.star, and then we define our class replace text. In the main method which it has, first of all, we need to declare that method to throw exception because it could, and that's a checked exception, so we have no choice but to either have a try catch block inside of here to deal with it, or failing that, we simply have to say throws exception. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that an appropriate number of command line arguments are there. There should be 4 in total. Should be the source file, the destination file, the old string, and the new string. If we do not detect 4 arguments on the command line, in other words, if that if statement where we say if args.length is not equal to 4 fails, or if it's not equal to 4, then it's true, and that it'll pass, and what will happen is we will print out a little polite message reminding the user that they're not using the program correctly, and we will say usage : Java replace text source file target file old string new string. And then of course we do a system.exit1. In this example program we exit with potentially 2 or 3 different exits, and exit 1 would be the exit that we produce as an exit number when the incorrect number of arguments have occurred on the command line. The next thing we check is to make sure the source file actually exists, because if it doesn't exist we can't proceed. So here we create a file object called source file, and we use argument 0 off the command line to represent the name of that file. We then check to see if it exists by checking the exists method of source file, and if that comes up true, or false rather, then not false is true, 2 wrongs make a right, and that means that we will not proceed, but rather we will print another polite message that says source file, and we'll put the name in, and we say does not exist, and we do an exit 2 to indicate that error number 2 has happened. Now continuing on, we're not out of the woods yet, because we're also going to insist that the target file doesn't exist. If it does exist, we're not going to overwrite it, just in case. So we create another file object called target file, and we set it equal to new file, and we base the name on the args1 off the command line, because that's supposed to be the name of the target file. And then we check to see if it exists, and if it does, we're not going to go any further. So if target file.exists is true, then we're going to print out another polite error message and say target file, name of file, already exists, and we're going to stop right then and there and exit with a code of 3 this time. So we have 3 potential exits: 1 when the argument list is wrong, 2 when the source file doesn't exist, and 3 if the destination file already exists. If we get this far successfully, then it means it's safe to proceed and go ahead and do the job that we've been tasked with. So all of that other stuff before this point was just checks to make sure it was okay to proceed. The actual program that does the job is merely the try with resources thing that you see immediately below. So we have that try with resources syntax. We have try and then an opening round parentheses and a closing one a couple of lines down. And within those parentheses, we declare and open all of the resources that we need. In this case, the input and output files. So we create a scanner called input representing input coming from the source file. And then we create a print writer called output using the target file as the name of the file. Then, in a while loop, we simply check to see if there's more input to go. So we check input.hasNext to see if it's true. And as long as it's true, we're going to iterate through that block of 3 lines that you see under the while loop. Within there, we're going to declare and set string 1 equal to the next line of input. So the entire line is going to come in from the file one line at a time, however many lines are in the file. And for each line, one at a time, we're going to create a string 2, which is equal to string 1 dot replace all, and then 2 arguments, args2 from the command line and args3 from the command line. You recall that was the search string on the left and the replacement string on the right. So what that will do is it will go through the entire input line that we read as S1 to replace all occurrences of string builder with instead string buffer. And then we will output the resulting line into our output file by saying output.println S2. And then we go back and iterate, take the next line of input from the file, do the same thing to it, write it out, and we repeat over and over again until there's no more input. And we don't even have to worry about closing the file because we're using the try with resources syntax, which automatically closes the file for us as soon as we drop out of the scope of the try. And that's it.